Yo, we are back and better than ever. This is going to be the first episode of our new podcast, The Baseball Life. My first guest is DJ Carrasco, my very, very good friend. I wanted him to be the first guest I had on this podcast. He brings a bunch of baseball knowledge to the table. He played in the big leagues for a very long time, and he is now currently a scout for the Los Angeles Dodgers. This particular episode, we were fortunate to get on a call impromptu with a guy named Seth Blair, who was a former first-round draft pick, has been out of baseball for quite a while. DJ got him a look by a couple scouts, and it's good to see a player's mindset on knowing his value, knowing what he wants to do, has a plan, and is trying to put that plan into fruition. So DJ gives some advice. That's kind of how the podcast started. And then we were short on time, so we had to only cover a couple things that we were going to talk about. But we're going to do a part 2 and a part 3. I'm going to have DJ on as a reoccurring guest, as well as we're going to try out some co-hosts along the way. But this is a really cool podcast. It gives some good stories, and it gives some good background on an experience of a guy trying to get back into the big leagues and still possessing a very, very elite arm talent as a pitcher. I mean, he threw 98 miles an hour for the Devil Rays consistently last week. So it goes to show that just throwing hard isn't going to cut it when you want to get back into the big leagues. You got to be able to do other things. Make sure you subscribe and hit the like button. I really appreciate it. It goes a long way. If you have any questions about things, leave them in the comments below. Also, if you wouldn't mind checking out our sponsors, Zinger Bats. Now, Zinger Bats is offering all listeners or viewers of the channel 10% off of your entire purchase. If you go and put in the coupon code HFC10, you get 10% off any bat or t-shirt or hat or gloves that they sell. Go to zingerbats.com. As always, our number one sponsor is HybridFit Club. Go to hybridfitclub.com. Whether it's sports performance, general fitness, need to get your nutrition in check, whatever it is, they got you. All right, here you go, the first episode of The Baseball Life. Let's go.
Well, and then so I just a couple other things. So when you go down there, right, get your fix in, whatever you feel that you need to do, but realize, right, like you're a blip back on the radar again, right, because of the velocity. And he's not saying you have to throw harder. Like, that's not the thing that's going on. It's just more repeatability. He's putting his name on you. You go out there one day and you're 97, the next you're 93, and then 92. You know what I mean? So
just absolutely. The ability. No, I completely understand.
Right, and then secondary, I don't know. He didn't really talk too much to me about the secondary stuff. But so go down there with the thought of, like, you need to be a pitcher, right? Not just a thrower, man. Looks and all that, but at some point, if it just keeps not happening, they're going to want to see you put up numbers in, like, an independent ball setting. I know the situation. Maybe that.
Yeah, I'm
maybe
not going to go to any ball
right.
games, so it's like it doesn't matter to me. I don't care. I feel like I would rather just keep doing what I'm doing and continuously get better than put myself in an environment where the mindset of the people around me isn't the same as
right. But getting better and throwing harder are two different things. So you have to put yourself in the environment where you're getting better as a pitcher, not just throwing harder as a thrower.
Yeah, for sure.
So like I don't blame you one bit. I there's no way I was going to play independent ball either when I was done. But something you might want to consider. I don't know the financial situation. I know Brian talks to me about your kid and all that. But winter ball could also be something that's a lot shorter, like a month at a time.
Yeah, I would consider winter ball before I would consider
for sure.
Ball.
Yeah. So, and again, I caution you, right? Like, don't worry about lighting it up. You'll be able to flash that pitch, man. Like, learn the repeatability of breaking balls and your change-ups and shit. Because if they see that, they already have you on chart as 97, right? And now they see you pitching at 95, but just dicing fools left and right, up and down, locating stuff, and then you let it eat once in a while up in the zone at 97. that makes my eyes like open up. Not because there's a lot of guys that throw 96, 97. It sucks to say that, but it is true. In pro ball, there are a lot of guys that do that, right? So, but they all don't have three
it's all about
pitches.
pitchability.
Yeah. All right, man. Well, enjoy your trip up there. Reach out if you need help. I just kind of wanted to touch base and.
97's 97, dude. I don't give a shit. Well, that was a good way to start this off.
Well, at least you have it on tape, so if
Yeah.
it ever becomes a big leaguer, you got that shit on tape. That would be cool. Yeah, dude, we got about 15 minutes.
No.
Yeah, they're
Hour
already
and
there.
15 minutes.
Huh?
Let the kids play video games. All right, so we're starting this. This is our first podcast for the Baseball Life. I am Kevin Bay, your host. To my left is DJ Carrasco, former big leaguer, current advanced scout with the Los Angeles Dodgers. I could go through his background. You've heard a little bit about him already through me, but I'm going to let him talk about what his past has been when it comes to baseball. He's from Arizona too, by the way.
Yeah, born in Arizona, grew up in California, the Northern Bay Area. Baseball through high school and college were not nearly the same kind of a roadmap, I would say, as it is nowadays with select ball and the amount of baseball being played and the amount of people that are available, the information that's available, whether it's good or bad, and whether it's a money-making thing or an actual, like, we care if you're doing good or not. I mean, those are just two different separate times. So throughout my college career, I played a year in junior college in California and one in Arizona here locally at Pima College in Tucson. And then that turned into my pro career. It was a long road, and I don't know how much time we got here for this, but I always wanted to be a hitter, right? I asked for my release. Asked for my release as a hitter. The guys thought I was crazy. Ended up
for your release unless you were a hitter, correct?
Yeah, unless they would let me become a hitter.
Like
I don't want to come back to pitch, right? I was kind of told that
Pittsburgh.
this was with Cleveland Indians at the time. So yeah, I'll probably jump around time frames or whatever. But when I originally signed, I thought it was under the understanding that I'll go in as a hitter. And if it didn't work out, then I agreed to pitch. And when I first showed up, it was instructs, right? I signed so late that they didn't know.
Free agent?
No, this was just, I was a draft to follow. Back then you can do that.
Oh, that's right.
And it was just heartbreaking, right? I felt like I was lied to, and well, I have you on the pitcher's list here, not on the hitter's list, so get your ass over there. And I'm like, what are you talking about? My scout said I'm a hitter. Well, who's your scout? And not knowing any different, right? These departments in professional baseball, these are organizations. Like, these are big corporations almost that run. They don't know who that guy was. They had no affiliation with my scout as an amateur guy. And it was an eye-opening experience, man. You're thrown in with a ton of Latin cultures, a ton of college guys, the high school guys, to studs, right? When you were the stud, you don't even hold the light. You can't even play. You're off the bench on this team because these guys are so good. And one of my first experiences in those games was there was a pitcher who was just coming back from an injury, and I think the previous year he was in the Arizona Fall League, which is like the cream of the crop of the minor leaguers, and he was like a Triple Crown winner, right? All wins, ERA, and strikeouts. He led the league in.
The league or Fall League?
In the Fall League the year before, yeah. And we're in Disneyland, Orlando, Florida, Disney World, I'm sorry. And the Braves team's out there, and these are like, these are like men-child, man. These guys, I didn't face that stuff in junior college. Once in a while there'd be a guy on another team that was kind of intimidating, and I'm watching him throw a bullpen. He's like 93, 94, putting the ball everywhere he wants, spinning it, snapping it off. I'm like, Jesus, this is what a big leaguer looks like in the making, right? And he goes out there and gets lit up. And I'm like 2 pitchers away, right? You're going to throw after this guy, and I'm just thinking, man, I still got like so many. I don't know what it was at the time. It was like 45 days left until I like give up my amateur status, because you can go back if you're not pro for so long. And
really?
Yeah. At that time, I don't know if it's still that way, but there's a window there in case you made a mistake or whatever. And I went out there and got lit up, and I'm like, I'm never gonna get there. Like this, I'm so far away from what I need to be. I don't know where the ball's going. It just goes pretty hard, and it moves everywhere. I can't remember the guy's name. I want to say the last name was Lyons. I don't know if that's right or not. I don't think he ended up being a big leaguer. I don't think so, because I don't remember him after that. But yeah, it was eye opening, man. And then that just turned into couple fiascos in the minor league where I got released from the Orioles that same spring training. Never played an affiliated like
the Orioles.
This was the Orioles.
Oh.
Never played in a real game where they kept stats and published it, which turned into calling my uncle. He had a buddy in Bo Allred who used to play with the Indians, and his buddy was Shapiro, who was the minor league coordinator at the time, and they sent a scout out to watch me throw a bullpen, and I popped 92 on that, enough to sign me, and off I was to Watertown, New York, upstate New York. And all the meanwhile, I still want to hit, and I'm watching these guys swinging stuff in the dirt and over their head. No idea how to hit with wooden bats, and I hadn't done it. It was very frustrating.
You think you can do it.
Yeah, well, I knew I could.
Yeah.
All these collegiate scouting teams and all-star games, I had the credentials to do so, but I just had a good arm. They projected me as a pitcher, not a hitter. I didn't understand all that stuff then. Like, now that I'm scouting and been around the game long enough, it makes a lot of sense. But then you just don't. You're naive to it. So at the end,
because you were probably just one of 50 other guys that could do that.
Yeah, well, yeah. At the time, everybody played both ways. It wasn't so specific. It wasn't the select ball that they're just kind of dedicating one kind of pathway. And towards the end of that season, I just got fed up with it. The Indians wouldn't let me change arm slots. I used to be real loosey-goosey from a low 3/4, and it kind of changed up sidearm at times, and they wouldn't let me do it. They wanted me as a downhill plane, pound the ball, and I'm topping out like an 84, 85. When in high school, I was 89, and I just threw a bullpen at 92, and they wouldn't let me be me, right? And threw a lot of strikes, but I got crushed, and I'm throwing knuckleballs in the outfield because the only way, in my opinion, to be a big leaguer was as a right-hander throwing 84 is a knuckleballer. So literally, I was trying to master a knuckleball in this organization while I'm crying at night watching
I've never
guys.
seen you throw one. Can you throw one?
Not consistently, no.
But it's decent.
Yeah, well, it's a weird deal. Like, for some reason, you got to like change the arm path. It's got to be a push path. It's not the normal get out there and let it whip how my arm works. So after about 15 or 20 like warm-ups with it, I can actually get it to dance pretty good consistently. So that turned into me asking the Indians to come back next year as a hitter, not as a pitcher. I want to finish out the year.
This is your first year?
My very first year in pro ball. And the guy kind of laughed at me. He's like, how many kids want to be in your shoes right now? Are you serious? I'm like, yeah, I used to. And I was just rattling off stats, right, as a amateur.
Well, 21?
This was 20 years old probably.
Yeah.
20, yeah, I think it was 20. And, of course, it's laughable, right? I don't get it. Like, this guy's been in pro ball managing for 30 years.
But it's not unbelievable.
No, it's not, especially now when you see guys like the Otanis coming up. Not that I was an Otani, but there's guys that can do it, right? And I asked him if I can come back. If not, I want to go home. And he's like, are you serious? Is that I'm like, yeah, I don't want to come back and pitch here. Like, I'd rather take my chances in independent ball, or I believe in myself enough to, like, I can hit. I always dreamed about being a big leaguer, but it was a hitter. It was never a pitcher. Like, all right, well, I'll find out. I'll ask him. And he came back the next morning and said, hey, we really want to sign you back. We don't want you to go anywhere, but it is as a pitcher. We're stacked in hitting. And I said, all right, well, you can just give me my ticket. And he thought I was bluffing or something. And no, that night they had me a ticket ready to go the next morning. I watched the game from the stands, and I was gone. That turned into a whole off season of hitting again, getting back in the way of hitting. I was working out at an Arizona community college in Thatcher, Arizona, Eastern Community College. And, a couple months there was an open workout at the White Sox facility in Tucson. A couple of the junior college guys were going to go down there, and I decided to do the same. In the meanwhile, I'm marketing myself. I'm getting online. I'm looking at the baseball, directory, finding out who's who and what's what, sending out snail mail, sending out emails and everything, right? And I finally convinced an independent ball guy to come out and watch me play, and I had great college numbers. Yeah, I'll look at you. Mark Kotze was a big deal at the time, and he'd play outfield, come in and close the game. I'm like, this is what I can be for you, right? Mm-hmm. So we do the White Sox workout. I make all the final cuts, and they look into me. The guy offers me the contract on the spot for an independent ball outfielder, and I'm like, sure, man. And while we're talking there, one of the coaches comes over and says, hey, DJ, did you play last year with the Indians? I'm like, yeah. And he's like, but you're a pitcher. Here you're hitting. I'm like, yeah, I want to hit and this and that. And he's like, oh, okay. You want to throw a bullpen? And I'm like, sure, I'll throw a pen because the independent ball guy's here. I'll show him. And I told him, I'm like, I'll throw a pen, but again, I'll only go if it's as like a closer. I'm not going to be a pitcher only. So I go throw a bullpen. There's probably about 50 guys there. They kind of made their elimination rounds when I wasn't there doing the outfield stuff. And they offered me a minor league contract on the spot to pitch. And all the kids
for the White Sox?
For the White Sox. And the kids are gaga goo goo over it. And I'm like, I would have stayed with the Indians if I wanted to pitch. I want to hit. Like, I got a contract to hit right now. Thanks, guys. I appreciate it, man. But I'm going to go try it.
That never happened.
100%.
No, I'm saying that happened. That never happens. Nobody would do that.
So now
I'm the nuts to do that.
Well, I was betting on myself.
Not to mention every guy there is begging to get a contract, so they take it if it was to, sweep up fucking
peanuts after the game, right? So that turns into I signed with this team called the Johnstown Johnnies. Spring training for them was in another 2 months. They start a lot later than the teams do, the big league team. And I get a call 2 weeks later from a Pirate scout. And he says, "Hey DJ, this is so and so, and I got some."
Brick?
No, that's funny you say that. There's another story about that. So he says, "I got some good news and bad news for you." I said, "Well, hell, give me the good news, right? It's got to be good news." He's like, "I'm with the Pirates, and we're going to purchase your contract, and you're going to be part of affiliated baseball again. You got a chance to make it to the big leagues. You're going to be wearing a professional jersey on your back, right?" I said, "Well, then there can't be any bad news out of that." "Well, what's the bad news?" He's like, "You're going to be a pitcher. We know we've done our background on you. We know you want to hit. You like to hit, and you're always talking about hitting ball, but you're not going to get a chance to hit. We're going to bring you in as a pitcher." And I said, "Well, what if I don't want to pitch?" I would have stayed with the 2 other options I had. He's like, "Well, technically, we can suspend your rights for 5 years." I'm like, "You're going to suspend me, dude?" He's like, "I'm not saying we will, but we can. So just go through it, man. If it works out, great. If it doesn't, we're going to send you right back. You can go hit. You still got 2 months before spring training." I'm like, "You got a point."
So the Johnstown Johnnies basically signed you and then made money. They got paid to give you their
great lead-in question. So this is one of the great stories I like to tell, especially to kids. It's kind of motivational. So traditionally, and I don't know if it's still the same, but during those days, when an affiliated team bought an independent ball player's contract, the player got 25% of the purchase price. The team got the rest, right? And it used to always be for $1,000, unless this guy was a super stud and there's multiple teams were bidding. But
is $1,000 a lot? I mean, I don't really know the financials of indie teams, but I would think that 1,000.
I wouldn't think it's much. I mean, it was just standard, right? It's kind of like a minimum wage or something. But in my case, because I'm all this hitter guy and I'm topsy-turvy, I don't know if it's going to work out with me. They said, "We're just for contractual purposes, we're going to put $1 down on the contract." And I'm like, so personally, I'm like,
a quarter?
Well, I'm thinking this is all they think that I'm worth is $1, right? That's kind of like a punch in the gut. And okay, well, whatever. I can't control what they're going to give me or not give me.
You couldn't say no.
They bought my rights. I couldn't say yes or no, or I wouldn't play pro. I can go play in city leagues or whatever. So that turned into me showing up in the Pittsburgh Pirates with Ken Griffey high tops and an outfielder's glove, no pitching toe, and I ripped that thing in the second outing, right? And things just started coming together. The ball was moving really good out of my hands. Long story short, I was dealing, man, and I made a team. Josh Bonifay was my teammate of mine, and his dad, Cam Bonifay, was the GM of mine at the time. And I would wear Josh out like, "Hey, tell your dad he owes me 25 cents, man." Like, as a funny talking piece, but like literally deep down, I was serious. Like, I wanted the check for 25 cents to show. Because what if I ever make it to the big leagues, man? Like, how cool would that be, right? Never got it, of course. Played there for 4 or 5 years in the minor leagues. Got Rule 5 to the big leagues with the Royals. Played 3 years with the Royals. After the 3rd year there, I went to Japan for a year. Came back, played a year in AAA after I was told I made the big league team the day before we left. And, oh, by the way, sorry, we claimed somebody before midnight tonight. So I didn't make the big league team after they just told me 6 hours previously. So 6 to 8 hours previously. That was crushing. I had the worst year of my career that year in Tucson. Probably had like a 9 ERA.
Because you were mentally.
No, the mental part happened a little bit, but 100%, I believe it now. I kept telling myself then to like trick myself into believing it too. Like, I'm a late movement in the zone guy, right? I make the ball move. I don't have big power stuff. And I had 3 catchers playing on the infield. In Tucson, the ball flies. It doesn't move late. Once it gets hot, man, everything straightens out. And I just could not get people to miss the ball. I just got shellacked, right? And I was thinking maybe I lost it, and that self-doubt started setting in. And it was always like you didn't, because when I go on the road,
up and then down.
Yeah, well, I was in the big leagues 3 years in Japan. Then now I'm in AAA, and I got a 9 ERA, right? Yeah. And I said, you know what? I'm just going to go play winter ball 1 year. And I I went to Venezuela, and now I got athletes that are infielders playing infield. I got grass that's actually growing. The ball has some humidity in the air, and I go like 4-0 with like a 1 ERA and whatever, 2 or 3 wins in Venezuela. Like, I didn't lose it. Right? I'm breaking bats again. I'm doing the things that I always did.
For people that don't know, what's the competition level you think in winter ball and
baseball? So Venezuela, all the winter balls get a lot better the second half. I went to the first half, so AA, AAA levels, I would say, on the games, because I was starting and I'm facing a decent lineup. I'm not facing the best lineups, but I didn't care about the lineup. I cared about what my ball was doing when I threw it, and the results and the location and the late movement were back. Those guys recommended me to the White Sox, who Buddy Bell was the minor league coordinator at the time, who was my manager in Kansas City, so they signed me. Cool. So the story that I told you was a little bit more detailed that I was telling him. And I said, before you were a GM here, whatever it was, 9 years ago, I signed a contract for $1. You guys bought my contract for $1. I said, somewhere in your records, your microfiche, or whatever you got back in there's a contract that shows $1 for me. I said, my other request is I want a copy of that contract, if not the original, and I want my signing bonus to be 25 cents, and I want it on an official Pirate check, and I want it needs to be a real deal, because that's what you guys owe me. And he's laughing and laughing. I'm like, I'm dead serious right now. Yeah. Like, that meant a lot to me. That was a motivational thing for me in the minor leagues a lot of those years. So at home, I have framed 25-cent check and a copy of my contract.
I've known you for about 6 years.
You never know that?
I've never heard that story.
You never heard that
awesome.
Story?
No.
Yeah.
That's freaking awesome, dude.
It's
and this is my point. Like, one of the reasons I wanted to have you on, well, one, because you're my boy, but two, because everyone sees big leaguers and they think it's a big league lifestyle. It's Mike Trout, it's whoever, Javi Baez, but 99.9% of professional baseball players deal with bullshit that nobody can understand. And what do you have, 30 days off in a season total? 40 days?
You got
less?
15
total.
Maybe 20 now.
Yeah.
Maybe 20 now.
But
of those, you might, literally 4 to 5 are days off. The other ones are days you're traveling on an off day. So you're not
That's
off.
why they give you it, because it's a long travel time.
Yeah.
So there's the difference between everyone in the big leagues obviously is good. But there are guys in the minors that talent-wise are better than guys in the big leagues. They just can't do it all the time, consistently.
100% agree.
There's guys that can, they'll go on a 10-game stretch where they're hitting 500 and have 8 home runs, but then they don't show up for 2 months.
I mean, there's several reasons, but the bottom line, like you said, is consistency. Right? Like, I've seen guys, like you're saying, that out-tool other guys. And then another thing is they can't do it when there's people in the stands. Like, you can do it in Tampa, yeah. Can you do it in New York? Like, some guys just crumble. Right. And it's unfortunate, because how do you mimic that in the minor leagues when nobody goes to those games? I mean, there's some parks that draw a little bit, 10,000 or whatever, but it's not the same. Yeah. So that's you could have a Mike Trout in the minor leagues, and if he can't do it in the lights, he'll never be a Mike Trout. Like, it doesn't bother him.
No.
But there could be a guy who's the same tool set.
He's calm all the time.
Whatever that zone is for him to perform, he finds it. He finds it, right?
And training, all that stuff doesn't guys clearly are throwing harder now than they ever have before. But my point is, we deal with kids here all the time, and they only play baseball, and they don't do anything else. And when we were playing, you played probably baseball only from April till July or August, and then you didn't play again until April. And the caliber of player is not any different really then than it is now. There's more good players or more tooled players, I think, maybe now, but you need to be an athlete first and a baseball player second, in my opinion, because this repetitive movements, kids are getting burnt out now. I mean, I knew a kid that was the number 1 high school player in the country, signed as a junior to play at LSU, and quit after his freshman year, and went to Arizona University and made the golf team. So he's clearly a good athlete.
Right.
He made a college Division I golf team. Did not want to play baseball anymore and just quit baseball cold. Because you play, and this was in Chicago. It's worse here in Arizona. But I think that people and parents and players aren't concentrating on development, and they're just concentrating on playing.
There's a lot of truth to that. I look around, and I'm not going to say that we were better then than they are now, because these guys are like they're so much more information, and like whether it's health or style of working out or sleep pattern or whatever it is, they have more information available than we did, and they're better physically handled on the whole, right? Not just but it's almost like a showcase sport at this amateur level.
Baseball.
Yeah, baseball. Like it's a showcase till you get to professional baseball, and then a lot of that is like the game experience it's small. Like I look at some of these guys, the ability of like having to learn the hard way and take bumps and bruises and like figure it out on your own sometimes, or have somebody help you figure it out. I don't see a lot of that as much as back when we played, right?
Is it more of because it's a numbers game?
I think so, yeah. I mean, a lot of teams now they're heavily numbers, right? Just to acquire a guy. Like you'll go to a tryout and I need to see velocity, I need to see spin efficiency with vertical break and stuff like this. I don't even know how the guy competes yet, right? I don't care how he competes. And there's some, that works in certain circles. I think there's a blend of everything, though. But I agree with you, man. Multi-sport kids at a certain age, yeah. I mean, if you're an elite athlete, you can start a lot later on at one sport-specific kind of. This is, like I said, the roadmap going down. But you either get burnt out, you see a ton of injuries, overuse, undertraining. Like these guys aren't ready. These guys aren't ready for what's being implemented to them at a young age, and the workload that's being implemented.
It's crazy for me to try and talk parents into their kids taking off-season off to develop and train and get better, as opposed to they just want to keep playing, playing.
Yeah,
they're on 3 teams in the off-season. It's the flipping off-season.
Yeah.
How about they go on vacation? How about they do other things to get them away from baseball? You could still train. You could still take cuts and do this and that. But I think in the weight room, or if you get on a good strength and conditioning program, you can get 40% better in an off season. If you play every day, you're just going to be a little better of a player than you were when the off season started.
Yeah.
Because keep playing, it's like doing something bad over and over again. Well, if you don't have the tools, you gotta at some point try and make those tools better.
And I can't really look in the big leagues right now and see a position player that's soft or doesn't bust his butt in the weight room and take serious like the base building of my body before I go out there and let me swing 500 times a day or let me throw that many balls. Pitchers are now starting to do the same. There's some bodies you look at that like, I don't know about this guy, but underneath, like their core is strong.
Yeah.
Their legs are strong.
Bartolo is still strong.
Yeah. So there's some stuff that pitchers might get away with to the eye that players don't. But
I might be wrong on the stat, but I read last year, I think that starting pitchers, there was only 2 guys that weighed under 200 pounds. That average velocity was 95. And those 2 guys were Chris Sale, who's a freak, and Stroman, who's a miniature guy. If he was 200 pounds, he would be probably pretty chubby. But those are the only 2 guys in the entire big leagues who averaged over 95 velocity and were under 200 pounds.
Yeah, I think there's truth to
mass equals gas, basically.
There's some truth to that too. But like, also as a scout, am I going to draft a 5'10" guy throwing 92? Like, some teams might do that. Some teams won't even look at that. So the critical mass is also 6-footers and taller too. So there's a little skew.
I don't think Kyle Hendricks would get drafted right now.
Probably not. Like it's unfortunate to think that, right? I mean, if you're an organization that really believes in a command tool, and maybe in high school, did he do what he can do with the ball now? I don't know. Maybe not. I mean, if he didn't do what he can do now, then he's not gonna.
I mean, he tops out at 87, 88. I mean, I'm sure he can get it up there if he wants to, but
it's under hitting speed. It's like the Jamie Moyer deal, right, back in the day. But yeah, there's some truth to like you need to build a base, and like now that I'm retired, right, I feel somewhat fortunate that I kind of got out of the game with not like too many bad injuries like a football player or body just killing me, but a one-sided dominant sport as much as unless you're a switch hitter, you kind of get a little bit of balance going on.
No,
like
who does that now?
Right, but I mean, speaking to like the value of training to a one side dominant sport. My back was the reason my ankle and my back were kind of the reasons why my career just ended as it did, because I was just one side dominant. I didn't know how to train the other side to take that workload, and maybe if I did, I could have played another 3 or 4 years. You know, who knows? So
because you definitely could. I mean, honestly, there's argument that you could still do it now. You just couldn't do it
the level of
on a daily basis.
Yeah.
You would need 7 days off, 8 days
Yeah,
off,
I feel that way. Yeah.
But go out, if you could go out, you could go out there right now and get guys out. I'm assuming. I seen you throw. I mean, you're still, and you don't work out to play baseball.
Right.
That's another point, is the training part of it will allow guys to have longer careers.
For sure.
And kids aren't seeing that, you know. They're not doing little things that you need to do. For instance, I had Sean Casimir in here in the off season, and the guy would take, before we did anything, 50 ground balls that he would throw against the wall, 25 backhand, 25 regular, 25 on his knees, 25 short hops, before we did any training. I don't know one 17-year-old that would do that right now. It's all grip it and rip it.
Right. And I see it in the pitching world, right? Like, again, the tools are great, the velocity is great, but pitchability is I don't see guys that throw hard command the ball. I rarely see guys that don't throw hard command the ball.
Well, the running guns have zero. That's what they practice.
Yeah.
And they don't. The ball's up 10 feet high. It's in the dirt.
I mean, they all have their purpose, right?
Yeah.
If you're talking about, was it like maximum run, crow hop throw? When they're working on a velocity tool there, right?
But that's their main purpose, instead of being able to locate velocity.
Right. So the blend of the two is what needs to happen. And when that part is figured out, then there's going to be some, like, you know, you talk about like hitters catching up with pitchers, and pitchers are ahead of hitters, and vice versa. That's going to be tough. To be able to locate northeast, south, and west, a fastball in all those quadrants, like as a whole of the game, gosh dang it, that's going to be hard to hit, man.
It's why baseball is the hardest sport, I think.
Hitting a round ball with a bat, yeah.
And the better these pitchers get, I mean, it's like, it's insane. Like watching some of these guys, 95, 97, 98 with movement. I mean, 92 was with movement.
Back in the day, yeah.
I mean, like, as far as scouting goes, there's a big change in that. I mean, I know you got to get going. Probably we should probably cut it after this.
But
we'll just do a part 2. But there's been changes in the way people, like, old school scouts are almost a thing of the past now. So how has, like, because that's your arena now, what is the difference with how you see the development of scouting coming along?
Well, I'm fortunate to be with the Dodgers, who still value what the eyes can bring to the total equation. But, you know, a lot of performance base is very quantifiable. You know, it's what's already happened, though. It's not what's happening to make those numbers. So when you talk about makeup, stuff like that, intent, like, just because the ball lands somewhere, did he mean to do that, right? What does the body look like? Is it going to break? Like, am I going to give this guy a 5-year deal when, you know, there's this forearm fly out going on, he's an elbow lead, or whatever it is? There's still some valuable information that can be had. Now, some teams just don't believe it's dollar cost efficient for that little piece of the pie, right? The Dodgers still believe that it is. So for me, to be able to see a competitor, how the guy reacts to adversity, how does he hold a running game, do the teammates like him? I mean, there's a lot of, you talk about team chemistry. I mean, there's so many facets of what the eyes and the person can get you the information that you might need to get. So again, there is some value to it, and we're considered, you know, you talk about tier 1 teams, right? Teams that are trying to win playoffs, get to the playoffs and win championships. They value that stuff. Some don't. Houston doesn't do that, right? Houston doesn't care for that. They think that it's plenty fine to just do the numbers, and they're entitled to do so, you know. So. And
that's basic. I mean, only baseball can do. I mean, basketball tries to whatever because of the number of plays, but because of the large numbers play out because of the large sample size of everything.
And the controllables, to an extent, are a lot easier. So you're a right-handed pitcher that faces a lefty or a righty bat. Like, In basketball, you can match up with 5 other guys. They can change it up. Those are hard things to control, right? Here, you can control the ability to match.
Yeah, I mean, there's more. I would love to get into what you think about the shift and rule changes being implemented. I personally don't think a lefty will ever come close to really. A power hitting lefty will never hit 300. Pretty much, again with the shift, it's just going to be impossible.
I mean. It depends on when you say power hitting, but if the game changes to where, and it won't, but if they push the fences back to 500 feet, right?
Yeah.
Now I got to hit for average. It just depends what's sexy at the time. What are guys getting paid for? They're not getting paid for average. They're getting paid for slugging, OPS, ISO. Those are what they're getting paid for. So yeah, I would agree with you, right? There's guys are just going to slap the ball the other way and bunt it. They'll open up some hits for themselves, but are they going to hit 300?
And
it's tough to do, man. Right. So yeah, there's a lot of truth to that.
Yeah. I mean, God dang, there's so much.
There's so much good.
Let me tell you guys, we had major technical difficulties.
We had an hour's worth thing,
and I couldn't figure it out, but we finally got it figured out. I've been wanting to do this for a really long time. Thank you for doing it right now. We are definitely going to do a part 2. This is more for the podcast and the video, but I just shoot stuff for content. But this guy doesn't really live on social media. He doesn't really do anything on social media. So there's nowhere you could find him. If you want to ask him questions, send them to me, and I'll touch upon it next time we have him on. Again, thanks, brother.
Thanks, man. Love you too, man. Thanks for having me.
Check us out at HybridFit Club on Instagram. The Hybrid Life on YouTube and on all of our social medias. We will be back next time. Till then, see ya!